Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's been a while since my last time that I did a live stream, and I'm very excited for today to talk about intimacy and connection because I think this is profoundly personal and universally relevant as well. Like, And I'm also curious, like, for all of you, when you think of intimacy and connection, what comes to mind in that? And what are the common challenges that you may be having or experiencing within your relationship that creates that distance or lack of intimacy and connection? I would love to hear your thoughts in that regards. Hello, Stephen. Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for being here. Also, feel free to put your name, where you're from, so I can do a shout out for all of you. Now, most common thing for people when we talk about intimacy and connection, they think about losing that. Mostly it's the physical connection from their partner. Like and let's say, for example, loss of attraction. So one or both partner may feel less physically or emotionally attracted with each other. And that's like the surface level of the physical intimacy. But if we actually go deeper from that, we realize that there's so much more. There's more layer to that to unpack. So I would love to invite all of you to actually share some of your questions related to this topic. What are some experiences that you've experienced when it comes to intimacy and connection? Hi, Paul. Are you still in Scotland right now or traveling here in the Philippines? Curious about that. Hi, Stephen from Maryland, a good friend of mine. I do have my personal list of, common pain points or even challenges that I'm facing when it comes to this topic. And I also did a little bit of research, and these are the common statement that people actually express in this topic. Like, I we just don't talk like we used to. There's a wall between us. I miss the way things used to be. I feel lonely even when we're together. Our conversations feel superficial. There's no more spark between us anymore. I don't feel appreciated or valued, and we rarely have intimate moments together. So, those are just, some common phrases that people are using or expressing when they started to feel that loss of intimacy and connection. And let me know, have you experienced feeling those towards your partner? I'm curious to hear. Oh, that's nice. How was your experience here, Paul? Having having been here for 3 months, was it a good experience so far? Intimacy connection, different with different ages and with different countries I have female friends with. That's a good that's a good thing to point out, Stephen. Definitely there is a different level of intimacy and connection that we have with people around us. We have It's a different level of intimacy between our partners, between our friends, and you know family, kids, stuff like that. What are some challenges in what do you think are the challenges that you've been encountering in handling those different types of intimacy, or what's the beauty of it as well? Hi, Mike. Good morning. Where are you from? Another thing as well is lack of communication. So, this one is not being able to express what you want, especially when it comes to what you want sexually. Like, how do you want to be touched? How often do you want it? And, when you're together with your partner, like when you feel horny or when you feel like you want to be intimate and connected, sometimes even that and expressing that to your partner is quite challenging. Like, and layer the reason behind that maybe because both of you are tired and you're projecting your feeling or fears that you're projecting that, oh, maybe my partner is tired right now and he doesn't want to be intimate with me and I don't want to be rejected. Like, the underlying thing there is the fear of rejection. So you don't want to tap your partner because, maybe you'll get rejected. And the more that it happens, the more that you will have that growing needs that is not being satisfied, and that's just sad when it happens in the relationship, and especially if there's no, like, regular check-in with couples. And I rarely met couple who does a regular check-in with each other, like really asking each other how are they feeling and talking about topic related to the relationship. Because most of the time when we go into a relationship and when we're already in the relationship for a long time, we just default into talking superficial stuff about, oh, how your day went. Let's talk about the bill. Let's talk about this trip, stuff like that. But it's rare for a couple to actually ask, how are we as a couple? Are you satisfied in this relationship? Are there needs that you want to be met? What are your desire? What are your fears? What are the things that you love and appreciate? So those are very important topic that not everyone are ready to go deep into, and that's, with a communication barrier and the fear of being vulnerable as well with our partner. And because of that, we the intimacy and connection diminish. Charles from Charleston, South Carolina, welcome and thank you so much for being here. It takes time. How your new part feels of intimacy and vice versa. Totally. One important aspect of relationship is really having that spark, having that chemistry. And Stephen, Stephen Thomas here, a friend of mine, he actually shared a podcast from Matthew. I forgot his name. Remind me, Stephen. But like a different level of uh, relationship. And he said that the most dangerous level is the level, this level two, where both of you are attracted to each other. Like you like this person likes you. So basically, there's that spark, there's that chemistry. And most often, when we start feeling that towards other people, we think that, oh my God, this is the one, this is it, this is my soulmate, and I want to be in a relationship with this person. And we often jump right away because who doesn't want to be loved? And when you find someone who actually are able to reciprocate the same feeling, the same attraction, the same spark and chemistry, then you just want to bond with that person. But then again, relationship is more complex than that. There's so many layers. And Matthew Housey, thank you, Stephen, for reminding me. And when we start feeling after 3 months or even after 3 years, when the honeymoon phase is over, we start feeling distance. We start asking those, we start saying those things that I mentioned earlier, like, oh, we're not as spontaneous as we used to be. He doesn't appreciate me anymore. He doesn't love me anymore. We don't have sex as often as we used to be. There's no more excitement in the relationship. And then we think that, okay, the relationship is dying, the relationship is fading away. And that's very sad and scary when we reach that point. And I just want to also point out, because again, when we talk about intimacy, and when we talk about intimacy, most people, they they just think about the physical aspect of it, the physical intimacy, which is being touched, like, you know, the sex part of it. They're very focused on that. And I realized that intimacy actually has a different level or different aspect of it. There's what we call the physical intimacy, which is where sex fall into being, like close body to body connection with someone. And there's also what we call emotional intimacy. And this is where the ability to be vulnerable with the person, the ability to be able to express what you want, what you need, what are your fantasy are, and having that open space to be able to share that information with one another. What are your fears? What are your deepest desire that you want to do with that someone or do together with that other person? That's in the emotional intimacy part. Okay, let me just read the comments here before I go deep into what I'm talking about. Yep, the four levels of relationship. First is, what was the first level? This is from Matthew Housey, the framework that Matthew was doing. It's like, first, I think you're attracted with another person, but they don't necessarily, oh, you admire the other person, but not necessarily admire. They don't necessarily reciprocate that back, and they don't even have to know. Then the next level is, oh, it's a mutual attraction. Both of you have that spark and chemistry. And again, this is the one of the most dangerous level. And most often people jump into the commitment committed relationship where they're like, okay, let's be together, let's be in a relationship. And then the last level is compatibility. And most often people don't reach the compatibility relationship because they don't even ask that in the very beginning. Like, are we they don't even they we don't have a filter of thinking, am I compatible with this person? Do we have the same values? Do we have the same goal? Because most often we automatically just get carried away by our emotion, like, especially when the spark is so new and there's such a strong desire towards each other. We forget about compatibility. We blind ourselves from all the red flags because we just want to indulge. But again, when you indulge with something, when you eat too much sugar, you have to pay the price later on. So, from Paul T, physical attraction is only the first step, but only time and experience knowing your partner's nature, especially in times of trial and tribulation, can reveal the real character of the woman. That's a good point, Paul. And I think it goes vice versa, men and women. When after that phase, after that honeymoon phase, that's when we start, feeling the lack of intimacy and feeling disconnected with our partner. And that's when the challenges start to creep in. And when that happen, what would be the things that we could actually do? What are the things that we could? Because most people, they just start fighting. They just go in the loop of fighting, having all that adrenaline of fighting towards each other, and then afterwards connecting again, like being intimate again. And that's a very addictive cycle. Like, people, they try to look for something to fight just to spice up the relationship because there's so much energy that is being released when you're fighting. And then after that, being able to come together. But then again, just like, any other drug, it goes up and it goes down. And when it goes down, it's just so toxic. And there's a lot of ways to be able to you know, bring that excitement, bring that spice back. And that that is one thing that I really love to learn about because I'm also in a relationship myself, and I also experience all this problem, like, mm, less intimacy with my partner, having some conflicts with my partner. Used to be we could talk about these things, or it's easy for us to come back together. But as time goes by, as we grow in the relationship, as we start feeling more like wanting to express ourselves, there's now a more intense fights or arguments. Like, we're growing. And the scariest part there is we might be growing apart. And sometimes we fight towards our individuality. Like, when you're in a relationship, there are moments when you feel like you're so codependent with each other. Like, you can't even think on your own without worrying what your partner's opinion about that, what your partner thinks as well. And when you start feeling that, at least for me, when I start feeling that, I start feeling afraid of losing my individuality. And because of that, I start, trying to fight against it, and it creates conflict again. So, because of those arguments, because of those painful, like, moments, I made a commitment of, like, you know what? I really want this relationship to work. What are some of the things that I can actually do to keep this relationship together, to be able to go through those challenging moments and come out of it even stronger? And it takes a lot of repetition. I have come across different framework, different principles to learn and unlearn at the same time, practices that I've introduced. And it's also very important to have someone who is willing to do the work with you. Because again, relationship, it's like a garden, it's a plant in a garden. You need to be able to cultivate it. You can't just expect that as soon as the plant is planted, that's it. There's no work to do. Even a cactus, it's very self sufficient, yet from time to time, it still needs some water. And I think, well, I wouldn't consider myself a cactus. I think I would need some more attention than that. So I think it's really important to actually learn and know what are some of the ways that we can actually do to bridge that gap. How can we continue and keep the intimacy alive, keep the spark, keep the fire burning? And I would love to ask all of you, what are some examples of problems that you've encountered in your relationship, and how did you manage to like surpass it, and what did what happened to the relationship when you're able to overcome those challenges? I'm so curious to learn as well. Mhm. Thank you, Stephen, for sharing your experience. That's a long marriage, 23 years. And yes, when you realize that the honeymoon phase is over, here comes the drama, the conflict, and how can we go out from here? My example, I miss my Filipino girlfriend, lost her 2 years ago. We had an on and off relationship for 7 years. She and I were a mess. I wish I could have told her how I really felt about her. Sorry to hear that, Mike. And yes, that's also the most painful part is I notice when I'm having an argument with Eli, we're arguing about something, but if I actually pay attention to how I feel, what I really want is for us to be connected. Like the main reason why we had this fight is because, oh, I want to be connected. I want to spend more time. But then I wasn't able to get that. And then I feel offended. And vice versa for him. There's something that he wants, but he couldn't put himself to ask it. And maybe if he asks it, it's in a form of complain, like, oh, we don't go out as much as we used to anymore. We're just home all the time. And for me to be the person who listens to it, like my automatic default is to defend myself instead of, hey, I actually want to spend more time with you. Let's go out. Let's have, instead of eating at home, why don't we try this new restaurant out there? It would have been so much better, and I would be feeling more excited about that. But again, we sometimes we just can't say what we want. Sometimes it's just so hard to express our desires and needs. And that's why in my I just launched a new program called 6 Weeks to Lasting Intimacy and Connection, where I actually share a practice of how to be able to hold space for each other, to be able to express your desire, fear, and love. And being able to bridge that gap of communication barrier, be able to connect intimately with your partner and be vulnerable with one another, be able to really understand each other better. And when I tried this with Eli, it's just an instant. connection. And it was so, and even the process itself is so intimate. And I'm so excited for all of you to also experience those level, that kind of intimacy and connection. What do we have here in the chat? We have some new people coming, so feel free to share your name, where you're from, and if you have any question regarding intimacy and connection, I would really love to hear about that. And I love how everyone are interacting with each other in the chat as well. Thank you for, being able to share vulnerably some stories. Another thing that I would love to also point out that is very common why there's, the intimacy is being triggered is when two people in the relationship have different sex drives. And I recorded a content about this sexual mismatch. Like, your partner has a very high sex drive, high libido, and then the other one is just not into it, like very low sex drive. And it can be challenging to navigate around that. And I would say I'm grateful that I find someone who match my sex drive. But even sometimes, because he works a lot more than me, there are more times that he just wanted to rest and I wanted some sexy time. So how do I go about it? And that's why learning of how to be self-sufficient as well, which is knowing how to pleasure yourself alone, is also important. And I'm glad that I'm able to openly communicate it with my partner, that if I know he's tired and I'm feeling it, I could just tell him, like, you can just watch me pleasure myself. And for me, it's just so hot. For me, it gives me even more excitement, even though I'm doing it alone, just knowing that he's there, or even knowing that he knows what I'm doing. Let's say, for example, if he's away, if he's traveling and I'm feeling it at the moment and he's busy, just giving him the idea, planting the seed that, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. For me, that's all already exciting. And vice versa. You can do that as well. And it's just nice when I am I am invited in the experience, even though I'm not there, maybe physically, or I can't do it physically with him. It's still, we're still able to connect in that way. And, that's a good way as well for all of you who might be having or experiencing that um, sex drive mismatch. Don't worry too much. There's a lot of ways that you can actually do to mitigate that. And if you want to learn more, yeah, just please feel free to check out that content, the video I created about sexual mismatch. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for being here. Speaking of health, yes, that's also another problem when it comes to intimacy, is physical health issues that really affects the sex drive of the person. That's why it's important for us to take good care of ourselves, eat healthy, work out, and take care of each other. Eli and I, we've been busy doing work with the business that we build together called Emerge PH. And for the past few weeks, we've been traveling back and forth here in Valencia and in Cebu, And when you're traveling, you just can't go with your routine of working out, of eating healthy, and coming back home. It's so nice, but also very hard to go back to the routine if it was broken for like 2 weeks. And I'm feeling challenged about that. And I notice myself, I don't have as much energy as I used to before, or sometimes I just want to lay, like watch movie, do boring stuff because I've been so hype last few days. And yeah, that sometimes causes some problem because the other person wants some excitement, wants some adventure, wants some spontaneity. And the remedy for that, when the relationship, at least for us, the remedy that we do is, ground ourselves and have a conversation, have that vulnerable conversation of again expressing what we desire, what are the things that we fear about, and what do we love, what do we appreciate, and that bridge us back together, that connects us back together. It Communication is definitely so important. Oh, I'm seeing more people now in the chat. Feel free to share your name, where you're from, and any question about intimacy and connection, or maybe share a story. What are some stories that you can relate about this topic of intimacy and connection? I'll be very curious to hear about that as well. There's also some circumstances that leads to lack of intimacy and connection. And I love this brilliant thinker called, her name is Esther Perel. I love listening to her. She's one of my teacher, and she talks about infidelity in a relationship. And when you experience, someone cheating on you, and you're still together with that person, you still try to work the relationship even despite the cheating and infidelity, that could be such a huge wall, a huge, problem to solve or conflict to solve between a relationship, because you still love the person, you still care about the person, but you don't know if you can trust them, you don't know if you're able to trust them anymore. And because of that lack of trust, it's very hard to be intimate again with someone. It's very hard to be excited again with that person. And what I learned is there's actually still a chance. There's still definitely a chance for couple who have gone through cheating, infidelity, to be able to come back together, to be able to um, flourish again in the relationship and have more, even stronger intimacy with each other. Because, and again, the one of the main thing that couple can do when they when someone committed, when there's infidelity involved, is having a communication, talking about it, and really understanding their layer, the reason why they did it in the first place, understanding what led them to do that, because there's so many deeper layer in that aspect. Because sometimes when, let's say for example, if I'm being cheated, mostly my default is, how could you do this to me? It's like me being the victim of cheating. Like, oh, I am not good enough, I am not attractive enough. It's all about, what's missing in me. But we often forget about asking them, like, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you desire that is not being met, that led you to actually look at it elsewhere? Because when we put the question outside of us, then we will have a much better understanding of why it happens in the first place. And sometimes in the relationship, the other person can't really give a deep answer. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who experienced being cheated on after 14 years of marriage. And people who would look at them, they're like perfect couple. They're just so fun together, very spontaneous, very sweet, despite that long, being together for a long time. They still ignite. You can still see the chemistry. But then the guy cheated on his wife. And to make it even, and I am not exaggerating this, the wife even came home and saw her husband like being with another woman. And I was so proud with my friend as well for being so calm and asked and even told them like, okay, I'll let you guys finish, I'll step outside. And they had a conversation, and she asked like, why did you do that? What was your motivation? What was your reason? But unfortunately, the husband wasn't able to really express why. And the husband was just expecting my friend to just yell at him, condemn him, and like punish him, hoping that, okay, with that punishment, he can repent and save the relationship. But sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes what we really want to be able to come back together, to be able to build a trust, is to really know the main reason, to really know the underlying reason of why we did that, why we cheated. Because if we can't say the reason, most likely it will happen again, happen again. And the relationship, they parted, they separated, and they're no longer together. And it's sad to see that long term marriage fall apart. Hello, Craig. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I was in Valencia last year, met you on Sunday in the square with Shay. Oh, that's nice. I think I remember. Do you think tampo hinders intimacy? I think you have to communicate effectively during good and bad times. Thank you for that question. And yes, definitely. It's so common here. I think Filipinas are known to have this tampo, being sulky and very professional. Very professional with that. And I personally don't take pride in this tampo act of Filipinas Filipino, because I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's healthy in a relationship. But I would say I'm also guilty. Like first few months being in a relationship with Eli, or even with my previous relationship before, my default is just walking away, not talking, stonewalling, putting up such a high wall because I'm so scared of confrontation. I don't want argument. And it doesn't work because you're, just pushing your emotion instead of clearing things. And because of that, there's a lot of relationship that when you see them they look so pale. There's no vibrant in the relationship. It's easy for me to spot a relationship that's healthy and a relationship that is so unhealthy. Because just like plant, you can see when the plant is healthy, they're so green, they're blooming. But when the plant is not being watered enough or there's a lot of weeds growing, they just look so dry. They're like crumbled. And most often it's because they don't know how to communicate their problem. They default to having this tampo, walk out, not talking about it, and letting time flies. And then eventually, like, let's just forget about it and let's come back together. But then you still haven't resolved the problem. The problem is still there. And because of that, it kind of gives you that distance with your partner. You're not able to fully connect with your partner because part of you is still not healed. Part of you still has that resentment. And it builds. So sometimes when you had fight and when your container is already full of resentment, you just burst and it's a shock for both of you. Like, where is this coming from? Like, it's just one simple problem, but it creates such big, huge mess. And it's because it's been a problem that maybe repeats over and over, but never talk about. And when it's too much, like you don't even know, there's already a web of problem on top of it, and it's so hard to be able to point out the where it's coming from or what was the root cause of it. And mostly it's with the tampo that it really starts, the lack of willingness to talk about it. And I have to unlearn that skill. I have to unlearn that, you know, default or that strategy of tampo. And because sometimes Filipinas do that because they just want their partner to, what do you call that? You know, sort of win them back and try to be sweet with them. They want sweetness. They want to feel important. And even worse, they want to use it to manipulate. Like, okay, I I'm annoyed with you or there's something that I want and if I'm not getting it, I'm not going to talk to you. So, be careful, pay attention to those tampo, and if you experience that, call your partner out. Don't tolerate it because it will gonna be, it will be painful if you tolerate that thing. It may be very common and it's maybe cultural here in the Philippines for people to experience or to do tampo, but I really feel that we need to dissolve that because there's no positive effect in the relationship for this to, for you to be able to, there's no positive effect for someone to do tampo. Tampo is an irrational human emotion and very destructive for a healthy relationship. Mature Filipinas get past this phase of life. Agree. Totally agree, Stephen. Mapul, for me, my own opinion, you build perfect couple around sexy instead of love. Tell me more about this. I'm not sure I get that. And where are you from, Mapul? Thank you for being here. And Craig, where are you from, by the way? If you can also share it in the chat. I forgot to turn my AC. It's quite hot, but I also don't want to get up because I only prepared. I'm only presentable from up here. What are I would love to talk about how we can resolve conflict. Like, how can we reconnect again when we're fighting? Because again, conflict is one of the reason why we have that distance, why the intimacy fizzle out is when we fight. After we fight with our partner, we usually keep our distance. And how do we go about it? And one of the one of the ways that I use to resolve conflict are using different types of communication strategy. There's a clearing method that I really love. I Me and Eli haven't been really using that as much as we want to, but it's very helpful when you do that. You if there's a problem that is pestering between the two of you, let's say, I'll set an example for the two of us, which is very recent. Like yesterday, we were driving into Magete, and he asked me if I want to eat dinner at home or outside. And I said, I don't mind. I'm leaning more towards just eating at home. And he's like, what do you want to do after? Watch movie. It's like, oh, we've been watching movie for the past few days. Like, I usually what I love about you is you're always up for something new. You always want you love spontaneity and adventure. And when I hear that from him, I felt triggered. I feel like fear. Actually, it's the fear that I feel that, oh, is he telling me that I'm not fun anymore? Is he telling me that he's getting bored in this relationship? And I'm having all those doubts and thoughts. And anyway, we end up eating out at Spicy Food House. It was very good ribs there, and really had a fun night. And this morning, I decided to open up to him because I still notice that it still bothers me, and I wanted to use the clearing method, but I did not signpost it. I just expressed myself like, hey, remember yesterday, there's something that I want to share. Like when you said this, so you state the inarguable truth, the fact. You just state the fact. This is what happened. This is what you said. And then these are the stories that I'm making in my head. I feel that I'm not fun anymore, that maybe you are bored with me, that you maybe want to be with other people that is more fun than me. Those are the story that's looping in my head. And what I actually want, and then you say what you want. What I actually want is, instead of, I want you to rephrase the words in a different way. If there's something that you want, like, invite me. Invite me, like, hey, let's go out and this is, I actually want to eat at home, or I actually want to eat outside instead of at home. I want to do something fun. Then I would be more likely to jump in and do that because I am just me yesterday. Like, I'm open for anything, but if you ask me what I want, like, I will just default to the norm. And the other person would have to acknowledge, listen, and after you express what you want, your partner, the best way to do it is for your partner to repeat what you just said. So you're telling me that yesterday when this happened, these are the story that you're telling yourself, and what you actually want is this. So that makes the other person felt heard and understood, and that just allow the that actually dissolve. It's so powerful to be able to dissolve the conflict and for you to be able to understand each other again, be in the same page, feel reassured, feel connected, and be intimate again with each other. But oh my God, it takes a lot of practice and it takes time to be able to do that and even learn and master that. Even for me and Eli, we're so familiar with this method, but sometimes we still forget to use it and we just jump right away to the story that we're making ourselves. And when we start with a story, the other person would defend themselves because that's just not how they see it. That's just not their intentions. Mapul, I'm from France. You know already. Time check. Oh, wow. Thank you for being here. It's so late. I appreciate you staying up. My kids are 8 and 10. My daughter is 8 and my son is 10. And right now, they're spending time with their dad in Cebu. So it's just me and Eli with no kids. Fun time. Steven, sure, sure. Nice. Now, speaking of routine, well, that's also a killer of intimacy, routine and being monotonous. And so I understand Eli. If he start feels, if he get bored because, yeah, we've been, because we had so much thing going on for the past few weeks back and forth in Cebu and also friends over, I started to feel just tired and just wanted to stay home. And we've been doing the same routine, eating home, watching movie, and sometimes movie that I like and he ends up being bored with the movie because he's not really much into it. And I could understand how the growing boredom and wanting to do something else would start. And I'm I'm very grateful that he was able to express that, even though at first it creates a little bit of conflict. And that's what happened when you're in a relationship and if you do the same thing over and over again, like let's say specifically in sex, it's already very predictable. Oh, we will do it in the bedroom, it will end in this time, and this is going to be the position. Like there's no more excitement, the sex becomes lame. So I highly suggest to spice it up. And I created a video about that. 10 sensual ways that you can actually incorporate in the bedroom. 10 different things to create variety with your partner. Even variety in position, variety in place. And I'm just so glad. It just reminds me of the thing that I could do this evening. Like we have two bedrooms here in the house. You know, explore the other bedroom, explore different areas of the house to be intimate with your partner. And I'm gonna set an intention to be creative today. To be able to do that. So I also invite you if you have a partner, like be creative, think outside the box. And I appreciate that I'm not the only person who's thinking about it. I appreciate that my partner as well is thinking about ways of how to spice up the relationship. And also appreciate all, content creators out there who's sharing their knowledge or ways on how they spice up their relationship, how they create a better intimacy and connection with each other. I was I went to the river yesterday because here in Valencia where I live, I'm just 5 minutes away from the river and I love having my alone time where I could reflect and be by myself and just reflect about myself, reflect about my life, reflect about my relationship with Eli. And it made me feel really appreciative of a friend of mine, Ben, who introduced this method of desire, fear, and love, a technique where you can use in your relationship when you're having a, it can be used as like a check-in. So Eli and I have a weekly check-in. We have our weekly date night every Friday where we just talk about us and our relationship. But sometimes we fail. Sometimes we still talk about work and business, which is fine because we both are excited about those topics. It creates excitement for both of us. But we also decided to add that as another layer of being, because sometimes, there's, you don't know what topic to talk about. You don't know what idea to share with your partner. So I'm appreciative of prompts like that, of actually, okay, the intention here is to create a safe space to open up with each other, to open up what is it that you actually desire within the relationship, desire about your life and your future, and desire about how we want to spend more time with our kids, spend more time with each other, spend more time alone, maybe things that we want to have in our life, travels, something material. And also, we go down to what we fear. What are the things that we are so afraid to talk about? What are the things that we are afraid to express with each other? And again, the goal here is to not complain or to blame, but just to state your real emotion without any expectation that the other person will solve it. It's just for you to admit to yourself and to verbally process that, whew, I'm actually afraid of this. I'm afraid to lose this relationship. I'm afraid that I'm not growing in this relationship. I'm afraid that maybe I'm being too much in this relationship. I'm afraid of my own sexuality. Those kind of things. And to know that you are in a safe space with your partner who can just listen. It's so nice. And then you close it with the thing that you appreciate. I appreciate this relationship. I appreciate how much I've grown in this relationship. I appreciate that I'm able to explore what my passions are and I'm being supported. So that's one technique that we like to do, that we like to incorporate in our relationship with Eli, that is very helpful and it really works a lot. Oh, I have 2 minutes left with you, with all of you. Again, thank you so much for being here. I love having this conversation and being able to connect with all of you as well, get to know you better. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Eno, for being here. Eno is my brilliant assistant who's really helping me when it comes to my content, doing the editing for me. Thank you, Eno, for being here. Also, Craig for being here, and Mapul from France. Thank you so much for being here. I think, or a very personal way you process and think about things. What was the trigger that started this journey? Maybe for the next stream. Ooh, I love that question. And thank you, Craig, for saying that. I appreciate you seeing me that way. Eli actually just asked me this question, like, well, specifically about being open minded and being in touch with my sexuality, because he's been here in the Philippines for 10 years and he's telling me, like, you know how rare it is to find a woman who's sexually adept and in touch with her sexuality? And I was like, ah, that's true, because I'm also that person before. I am not as sexual as I'm used to be. And it's mostly because of the culture, the religion that I came from. There are so much taboo. And he asked me, when did I start? When did I start being more open? When did I start like allowing myself to explore in those areas? And we actually both realized that we're somehow in the same journey. Like before we meet each other, we've been in our solo journey of trying to unlearn, trying to let go of all those shame and guilt and debunk the taboo. And yes, definitely. Craig, thank you for giving me an idea for my next live stream. Let's talk about, yeah, I would love to share what was the trigger, what was the turning point of my dalagang Pilipina to like this person who can openly talk about sexuality, because I used to think sexuality is very sinful. But now I see sexuality as it's a different realm. It's amazing, it's healing, it's magical, and it's beautiful in its own way. And I wish for more Filipinas, more women, men all over the world to be able to tap into their sexuality, be very comfortable with it, and embrace it, because that's who we are. You know, that's part of being intimate within ourselves. And that also help us be more connected with who we are and be more connected with other people. Alrighty, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I love you all, and I hope to see you in my next live. I'm planning to do this as often as I can, and I will definitely notify you ahead of time when I will do this live stream again. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day. Take care. I'll end the chat now.